but you haven't talked to him. Usually he runs a little on later rather than earlier.
Yeah, he should be here. So I hadn't heard anything to the contrary, so. Give him a couple of minutes.
Hey, Jeff, are you expecting anybody else on the Zoom call?
Yeah, I'm still expecting, or no, I'm sorry, I was gonna expect Justin, but no. I don't expect anybody unless Matt Duvet is gonna use it. He didn't tell me he was, so,
All right, I'll keep an eye on it and just give me a text if you need anything.
okay.
Thanks.
Probably shouldn't have the Zoom meeting on while he's in church.
Is that,
Yeah, he sent that email on this afternoon.
oh, I guess I didn't
Yep,
see that.
yep, said he wouldn't be attending tonight because he's going to mass.
Well, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. We do have the quorum, so with the agenda and minutes having been provided earlier, any discussion or comments on the agenda or minutes from last week?
I moved to approve the minutes as written and approve the agenda.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes and agenda, signify by aye.
All right,
Opposed? Minutes and agenda are approved. Todd is here. I was telling him a few minutes ago, Todd, Justin is not going to be able to join us tonight. He had a minor surgery, so it'll be just the four of us. So the agenda item today is discussion and decision on the initial zoning assignment. So we have the spreadsheet with the notes on it, and it's filtered it to just those that had zoning assignments. And we also have the here, the maps that Nikon had made for us. And I have the county GIS site, so we can zoom in, see a little bit more detail on any parcels that anybody wants to look at. So I guess first thing would be, did you guys have any questions or issues on the review of what it is that Nikon had done and the assignments?
I guess I did just that. I sorted the list of what was on and went down and double checked everything on the map. I have no disagreement of what Nikon did. In fact, I'm pretty happy with exactly as Nikon has it.
Okay.
So
I don't have any comments.
as far as I'm concerned, then that's really where we could move to.
Okay. So I did raise the question on, in particular, the gravel pits, BMC and Folkestone. So just by way of
Yeah, and
example here.
And I understand where you're coming from, 100%, Jeff. The problem I have is, a good example is the 40 acres we bought. We needed 15 of it for our piles. We planned to farm the other 25.
Right.
And it's the same way I can tell you, like Harris's gravel pit. Okay, if you use your analogy, then all of Harris's ground becomes, that their farming becomes industrial in. You know, because they own the gravel pit and they own a lot of farm ground, so same way with Train Hill's associated with it. I mean, where do you draw the line of where they farm and where they don't farm? I'm good with the fact of, if it's currently a gravel pit, it's a gravel pit. If they're farming it, they can come in, get the variance, pay the $150, move on.
Yeah,
Now, if I'm also willing to sit here and say publicly that if BMC comes in and says, we want these particular parcels changed before the zoning, can we do that?
yeah, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, because this parcel here it's a great example. It's BMC Aggregates owns the parcel. You can see that they're actively mining part of it. Part of it is being farmed. If it's zoned as ag, then that says they, you know, it is ag use. This can continue in use as mining without being enlarged. If they want to enlarge that mine here, extend it, you know, down to here or wherever, then they would have to rezone that for light industrial.
Like, can you tell me, is there rock underneath what's being farmed?
I'm sorry,
Can you tell me if there's rock underneath of what's being farmed?
I don't know. All I know is that,
That's where my
well,
point
and
is.
so one of the things I was thinking of is, would it make sense for us, you know, I can call BMC and Falkstone and say, look, here's what's coming down the line. These parcels right now, the zoning commission intends to zone those as industrial. These partial parcels where a majority of the parcel is being used for other than mining, our intent right now would be to zone that ag, which means you can continue mining the part that you're mining under that ag designation. But if you want to extend that mine, if you want to extend that pit further into the field, then you'd have to petition for a zone change. That's a $150 fee, public hearing, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. and-
Would you prefer going that route or make it light industrial now? You can continue to farm it because it's in use as farming, but that way they can extend that gravel pit without having to go through a rezone because it's already zoned.
Well, what's the big deal?
Well, I think we should give them that option to have it zoned as industrial now, save them from having to go through a separate public hearing and rezoning fee in the future to extend that gravel pit further into that parcel.
My opinion is if they're gonna extend in the future and they know it's zoned, that $150 and the time to do is absolutely nothing compared to what they have to do to expand. And I personally think less is more. I don't think it's worth going through all that. I leave it as that, leave it that way. You know, the big areas that you have where the entire parcel is already a gravel pit, to change that to not ag, to assign it appropriately, yeah, why not? But anything that's questionable like that, or anything that's split, it's kind of like.
So you don't think we should even ask them if they want to change it to light industrial now?
It's not gonna hurt to ask them, but I don't really start and stop that process. It's.
Well, it's their land. They know what their intent is. If they intend to mine it, if it was my property and I intended to mine it, I'd say, give it to me as light industrial or as heavy industrial, I guess. Give it to me as heavy industrial now, because I don't know when I'm gonna start extending that gravel pit, but I know I'm gonna extend it. I don't wanna have to screw around with petitioning for a zone change in the future. Just make it industrial now.
And you might think that, and the next guy might not think that.
Well, but that's why I think as the BMC as the landowner, we should let them know and give them that option.
Don't we have a second reading for a second hearing on this?
Yes,
So we're notifying them. It's-
well, we're notifying them that, so the letter that would go out, and I did hear back from NICOG, that we can send that I don't call it generic letter, but it's a letter that would be appropriate for everybody, saying, here's what we're doing. And everything is zoned ag with exception of the enclosure. And then the enclosure would list these parcels and the zones. So they would know that they've got 7 of their dozen parcels would be zoned as industrial.
I mean, to me, that's their opportunity there without us having to reach out to them and say, this, you know, I want.
We treat
I wanna talk to
them-
you guys and
yeah.
say, no, I would like this property done this way. Is that okay now before we finalize it? We don't have to really do anything more, in my opinion.
Right,
Just send that letter.
less is more right now. Kind of what I'm saying is it sounds easy right now with just trying to know Falk and be as, but we're setting a precedence with everybody else, and to show that we're not going in and trying to change everything because it gets people shook up, you know, okay, the ones that are obvious, go ahead and do that, and then let the people come in if they want to change, you know, on these partial ones. You know, like the examples brought up with Sorbo, and now we're talking about the gravel pits. There's thousands of this stuff all across the county, thousands, and we don't want to go through the work of that. I think as a council, we need to set the precedence of treading lightly, giving everybody the benefit of the doubt, and let them do their own work. Let them spend their $150, or have them come to a meeting and go, yeah, no, I want all my stuff as industrial. I don't want to go through the work out of it. And I think it sets a bad potential precedence across the county when all of a sudden all these other little people go, oh geez, you know, you changed everything when this was ag. Now what are you gonna do to me? And I mean, I don't think it's worth it. If they want to change, they'll let us know.
Yeah, they're getting the opportunity, they're getting the letter. Now, if you want to me, it's up to them to come back to us. We, in essence, need to treat everybody in the county fair.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do, because, you
The
know,
letter goes out, they come in and they say, we'd like to change this particular parcel. We can make an amendment. We can change things. We can allow them to go through the process for free or however you want to do it. I mean, there's lots of things you can do, but I can't assume that they're gonna mind that, because if you, would you put up Harris's Quarry? Right on the west side of town?
Kind of a different way to look at this also is, we don't want to start the precedence as we are going to start calling people to make these changes. This needs to be.
we would, this, all I'm saying is that if we don't tell them that this parcel, so if you recall the parcel that was up there, this parcel that has a gravel pit that extends along this line, you can't extend that gravel pit deeper into that parcel unless you get it rezoned in the future, if we turn it into ag.
Right,
And they understand,
right. And
and they're gonna get the letter telling them that, right?
yeah,
They'll get the letter that it's ag, with the exception of these other parcels.
Correct.
but it can also say in that letter that if you want something changed, it's your responsibility. If you don't like how it's zoned, or you want it changed, or your future changes are your responsibility. So that it's keeping that responsibility on all the people and not on zoning police. Yeah, we're setting a precedence there so that it's their responsibility, everybody treated the same. They all got the letter, they all know that they're zoned. There's gonna be a lot of questions, but that's gonna be inevitable no matter how we go about this. There, you know, just like at our meeting, people asking questions about putting on a deck or
Can't put on a deck.
shutters, or there's gonna be obvious questions, but.
And those are good questions.
Oh, absolutely.
To realize
Absolutely.
that we are not, that's not the object. The object is make sure when you build a new house, it's 50 foot from the road.
But it's
That's
also,
what we're talking.
it also kind of like what Enos was saying. We're trying to keep this as close to how the auditors have it taxed. Try to keep things as close as we can, and try not to change, you know, try not to change a lot of stuff. Just what's blatantly obvious. And to me, if the whole piece is obvious, fine. Anything that's partial, it'll get sorted out in the future.
Put up Harris's.
But as I said, that looked like, Randall, didn't it? Yeah, when you drive by now, there isn't even a pile of gravel there anymore.
Well,
Well, there's a pile
there,
in this parcel.
it's still, it should be zoned as industrial simply because there's still a scale there, there's still a scale house. It looks like a quarry, it acts like a quarry. Now, if you look at the land ownership there of 3H's owns it, okay, you're gonna sit and say what they're farming then should be zoned as industrial. And there's no rock under the part that they're farming. The piece that's to the left, that is a separate piece.
This little,
No, I was talking to the north. There's 19 acres to the north that actually goes across the river that they're farming. That's part of 3H's, that right there.
yeah, but that's a different parcel.
Right, but I'm just saying it's all owned by 3H. Same owner, you flip owners across the fence, it's owned by a different owner. And the rock vein actually goes out into the different owner's parcel. It doesn't go north into that. So me making the assumption that they're gonna take the rock, I can't make that assumption.
Right, and applying that to Fox, it's the same thing. So they speculated about farm ground where there's possibly gravel, maybe they farm.
Or they bought the whole thing because they had to.
It's,
You wanna buy my 40 acres of mine, no, you're buying all 140. You know, the letter goes out, everybody says you're zoned as ag unless these are your parcels, you're not zoned as ag. NICOG put together the list and it looked to me like they found the blatantly obvious, to coin your word, of places that weren't. They missed one that's kind of is and kind of isn't.
Where's that?
Dietrich's. He's a commercial fertilizer dealer, chemical dealer, looks like a farmstead.
there, it's an ag venture, but he's commercial.
And he farms himself. I mean, it's very similar to Rugland out in Hartland.
So it's not on this filtered list?
No, I do not remember it being on the filter list,
What,
because I'm sure it's being taxed as farm.
I would assume, I don't know.
what township is it?
Is that Kensett or is that, what's east of Kensett?
Yeah, it's east of Kansas. Well, southeast of Kansas. So it's right on that line,
It's right next to the river.
right next to the river.
Beacon.
Yeah, basically from Kensett Homes, it goes straight east.
Oops.
Alright, so. Right now, stand to play.
So here's Kansas.
Right there's Kansas. Here's the river over here.
You,
Right there, because there's your Kirby Road, right there's Brandon Eaton's.
Yep,
I think that's on the list.
Did I miss that?
005,
Oh, that's,
maybe, I don't know. It's still in Kensett Township. Well, let's do it this way.
because Asmus was on the list. And it was notated that, well, Asmus is a chemical dealer
Oh, maybe it's Asmus is the one that I'm thinking.
on Highway 9. Okay, he's a seed dealer, but he's also a chemical dealer, and they have a custom spray business there. Therefore, to me, it throws them in, and just like Brandon Dietrich, he is a fertilizer dealer. He sells commercial fertilizer, listed as a commercial fertilizer business.
and I honestly think a lot of these people are gonna go they're gonna look out for their own best interest. They're gonna ask a question, they're gonna
Yeah,
try to figure it out. Who knows, maybe in the future, like, for example, with the pit, maybe BMC, or excuse me, maybe Foxconn decides they need to make that two separate parcels. In the future, so that one of them is industrial, one is ag, we don't know what the future's gonna hold with some of this stuff.
oh, well, that's the whole thing is like on the one, the previous one you showed, the BMC. Are they mined out? Is all the rock gone? Are they happy with it as is?
And a lot of
Because
these, a lot of
once
these,
it's mined out, what is it? It's back to ag.
a lot of these small pits, you can take Grandpa Dwayne's.
Yeah.
It was a farm, and then it had a gravel pit, and now guess what? There's farming, the piece of it, and both ends of it are just deer hunting.
Yeah.
It's no longer a gravel pit, but it's probably showing.
Yeah, it's not a gravel pit, but it's not really
Too
ag.
much. There's hundreds and hundreds of gravel pits across this county.
Well, that's, you've never noticed the one right behind my house.
Right.
It's all woods now, but you walk right behind my house, I mean, there's a big crater in there. and They tore right into the side of that hill. Yep. So, that was the only one that when I was looking at, that I'm like, that's one I know, and it brought it up because Asmus was identified on Highway 9. So, but I have a hard time, if you're currently farming it, not calling it farm ground.
Well, they did, yeah, if you leave a lot of that as ag, it's gonna follow along with what the assessors
Well,
already have.
Yep.
In this
Different
case,
taxes.
it's not, I mean, it's a small parcel.
Correct.
It's not farm. The parcel next to it is farm. This one is not.
Yeah, you're talking,
That's where his business is
grand.
actually
Yeah,
based.
that's where his business is, and whether you, for him, whether you call it one or the other, is it gonna be a big deal in the long term?
More or less, he's a grandfather in anyway.
Well, that's the thing we need to make sure people understand is the existing use would be grandfathered in. Like the mine as an example, the gravel pit, it's, you know, and these buildings, that would be grandfathered in. But if it's not the correct zone, they can't expand it without changing the zone.
Correct.
We gotta get people in the habit of policing themselves and coming forward, because they know when they're gonna change something and when they're not. We don't wanna make it to be a county's problem to go out and check on these things.
Yeah, no, I understand, and I'm not saying that that's what we should do. I'm just saying that for the first one, we want to try to get the first one accurate, get
Right,
that
yeah.
map done.
And that's why our,
And, you know,
one
if-
blanket egg,
Because if it's, you know, if it's a commercial business, it should be zoned as a commercial business. That way they can expand and do whatever they need to do
Absolutely.
within that zone.
Absolutely correct, but on the ones that are controversial or partial, it's just too much upsetting the fruit basket right now. I think we gotta.
So you guys, you saw the email with the discussion with Nikon on the letter that would go to everybody? The concept of that letter saying, here's what we're thinking, all ag with the exception of these things, we would list that stuff in the enclosure. I did hear back from Matt, and he says, yep, sounds like a good plan. You don't want to have individual unique
Right,
letters going to.
You're talking Matt.
Matt O'Brien,
or Matt O'Brien.
Matt O'Brien with Nikon.
Okay, so, I just,
Did you run that, obviously you probably ran that past him today too.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah, he thought it was cool too, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I copied him on it and he was silent on it. He didn't have
well,
anything to say one way or the other.
you know, to me, that, you know, looks like a farm, acts like a farm, is it a farm, do you change this one? That was the only one that I saw was left off. And I'm only aware of it because I'm in the ag industry in Worth County. Just like if I'm gonna pick on Asmus, I'm gonna pick on Dietrich, and I don't wanna make it sound like I'm picking on them. But it's no different, I'm
Right.
sitting there saying the anhydrous site right on the right north side of Grafton, and that's ours. is industrial. I'd want it zoned industrial. I would think he probably would too.
Is that one on the list where you're talking
Yep.
about?
Yep, right, the anhydrous tanks, fertilizer building, it's. The biggest problem to me is knowing where the town lines drew.
Yeah,
Prior to this, because the Manly and its expanse, did somewhere along the way, the city of Kansas say, Kansas Homes is $500,000 property, and I'd like to have that as part of my tax base. And so now the junkyard is part of Kansas
Right,
tax
so,
base.
right, so the GIS has the purple line
Yeah,
around that describes the city limits.
yes,
The only town that we are aware of, we being the NICOG and the auditor's office records. The only town we're aware of that have claimed that 2-mile extraterritorial zone is Manly. And we have the description of what that zone is.
Yep.
And so we've made certain that as NICOG has gone through that, anything inside of that zone does not apply. So for instance, as we look at the Manly Terminal area, that 2-mile zone runs along this border here.
correct.
So these two parcels and the top loop is outside the 2-mile zone. All the rest of this stuff is inside Manly. Talking to NICOG, he thinks that the supervisors and Manly may have to do a 28E agreement after we do the zoning, so that Manly reasserts that 2-mile extraterritorial zone. Right now, they're claiming it in the absence of any zoning from a county perspective. But when the county zones, then the concept is they would have to reclaim that.
Unless
we
they don't
didn't-
want
Well, unless they don't want to.
to, and they zoned it just because nothing else was.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, my guess is they wanted to control it, which is why they extended it.
I think, yeah, because there was no zone.
Right,
They zoned it to keep things out.
yeah,
I mean, in essence, is what
Yep.
Manly did. At least that's what a forefather Manly told me when I was talking to him. Talking about the Manly zoning, but.
Yep.
That's hearsay, so.
I know what we're talking about.
okay, so
Yeah,
the concept for the letter, it's good to go.
yeah.
I'll draft something up and then I'll work with the auditor's office, well, the assessor and the auditor, because the assessor's got a lot of the records, but the auditor, I think, is the one that has to send it out. So I'll get it drafted up and work with the auditor to get that stuff sent out. We do need to have a second public hearing, so the letter will have to announce the date of that public hearing, and then, of course, we have to publish notice in the paper for that public hearing. So when do we want to schedule that?
Well, do we want to step back here a second, Jeff, and actually say, are we willing to accept NICOG's exceptions? And then plus or minus Dietrich's, I'm either way on it, so what do you guys think?
So add Dietrich's to this list.
Right, because
Filtered list.
Because it was a small parcel and it's,
you think we should add it or not? I just want to make sure the motion is what NICOG identified.
right.
Plus,
But to me, after seeing that he has that as a parcel by itself and not with the rest of the farm, then it goes with what you're saying. To me, that's obvious. And we know it's a commercial venture.
Yep.
So I think it should be added, but
and it
I could go either way too.
I mean,
you know,
it looks like a farm site.
He can, if he doesn't like it, he can come in and say something and then it can be discussed.
I think it should be zoned the same way that we did with, what did you say, Armis?
Mhm.
Yeah, the Pioneer dealer on
Yeah.
Highway 9.
So then do we? need to
Light,
look at-
light industrial because of the chemicals.
Correct.
So then do we need to look at Rutland's and see how that's parceled off? Does he have the acreage parceled off separately from the rest of the farm?
But we're not gonna go to that can of worms tonight,
Well, I mean, if we're
because
gonna,
he's already zoned. He's in the zone area.
He's inside the Manly.
Okay. No, he's in
he's in,
Hartman.
Oh,
Oh, he's in
Silver Lake.
Is he in Silver Lake? So is he outside of,
He is,
so that would be the other one that would not be on the list at the moment.
I think we need to look at it.
Yeah, that,
And just because.
I was
it's-
thinking he was in
Quite
on it.
honestly, it doesn't really matter if he's in the old zoning or the new zoning, if we're gonna change it. And we're trying to. be
Yeah.
fair.
well, if they're already zoned, we.
yeah, we tried to stay away from Heartland, Brookfield and Danville because we know that there's stuff that's messed up in there.
Right.
We'll have to go back and
I just didn't know
fix
that
those things.
since you put the other two chemical.
No, yeah, if, I was thinking he was Heartland and we wanted to
I
stay
think
away
it's
from
Silver
him,
Lake.
so.
So where's he at?
He's a mile from the Minnesota border on the blacktop that goes north.
Yeah, from the casino,
Silver
we
Lake.
don't know.
Silver Lake's there, so it's over there on the black.
Over,
You
which
should be able to
direction?
see like the Silver Lake Church.
There should be the blacktop.
Is he east or west of the interstate?
He is west of the
West of the
interstate.
Okay, so here's the Silver Lake blacktop going north.
Yeah, so he should be right there.
There, right?
Yep,
This one?
Yeah.
yep. Almost looks like he's got it parceled off. Oh, maybe not. I'm not sure.
What's,
That, no, that's the next farm south. You gotta go to the next farm north.
Isn't that amazing? They want to zoom in?
You know what? I think we went the wrong way. I think we gotta go south. That still don't look right, does it?
No.
so there's Weederwood.
No.
So this is gonna be the farm colored shed. So we gotta go up here.
This is the map.
Something don't look right.
Well, you're still in Hartman Township here.
Over here, so Weederwood divides.
We don't know what
Silver Lake.
Hartman and Silver Lake. Yeah.
This, he's done a lot of changes out there.
Well, what year is the map? You don't.
I don't know.
Go ahead and blow that up a little more. Oh, because it's
Oh,
almost right,
yeah, that's.
that's right next to Wheeler.
This is the place.
No,
This is,
I can tell you who owns it.
yeah, that's the next. It's almost like it's down here between. Because the next section north, it's right up the border.
What's the last name?
Rugland, RUGLAND, Chris. Well, the D might be an R one. There we go, now you found it. Yep, that's it. Does that come off of Wheeler or not?
Well, it's a Weederwood Road address, but he's in Heartland Township.
Boy, it sure looks different from here.
That's, well, yeah, pull that up a little. Can you see? We're standing in your way. Yeah. So that is in Heartland.
Yeah,
Looks like a barn. Acts like a barn, we, over the, he sells that hydrants, he sells chemical, he sells, he's also a seed dealer. And seed dealer is allowed under ag, where,
Yes,
But seed's different than chemical.
so this is something where our zoning has failed.
potentially.
Because, no, it has, because he put an anhydrous tank out there 15 years ago. That sound about right?
Oh, you're talking about the fact that when you put the tank out there, it didn't change?
Correct.
You know, that's because there's been so little attention paid to zoning
Right.
in those 3 townships outside of the interchange. I very rarely did people even say, hey, I'm gonna do such and such. What do I need to do? What kind of a permit I need?
So in this map, he's got the house separate.
Is a separate parcel.
From all the rest of the,
Yes.
rest of the buildings.
Right.
Yep.
And that means all, the whole works is gonna be currently zoned, nothing's.
Current,
You know.
Yeah,
that's how it's already.
This
been
parcel
assessed.
could easily be zoned as appropriately as the light industrial.
And it's, you know. There again, that's. Looks like a farm, you put the anhydrous tank in and for himself. You know, and it was just that.
Well, he doesn't have a
Slowly.
sign at the end of the driveway.
Yeah, that's Brooklyn Seed.
Doesn't really? Yeah, I've been by there a million times, it must be.
Well, maybe it was at Arnold's place they used to have. a-
They know they had one there, but
You go by more often than I do, but, yeah. But either way, it's in Heartland Township, so it's a mute point tonight.
For tonight, yeah.
I just thought maybe if it was something like it obviously sectioned off, we could pop it in there, but he hasn't, so.
Yeah, as far as cleanup in Heartland, Brookfield, and Danville townships, you know, there's gonna need to be cleanup in the zoning ordinance itself. You know, I've found where, well, one of the first ones that kind of jumped at me is in light industrial, you've got, in all the zones, you have permitted use and conditional use with a conditional use permit, right?
Correct.
Light industrial lists conditional use, junkyards, things of that nature. And then you go to heavy industrial and permitted uses, it says, start with a list that is conditional use in light industrial. So, well, that seems asinine. If you're gonna make it permitted use here, then why would it be conditional over here?
Well, nobody said it was perfect, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded like a good idea at the time.
Yeah, so anyway, there's gonna be cleanup, there's gonna need to be cleanup in the 3 townships that are zoned, but I think our approach thus far has been, we have the zoning ordinance, those 3 townships are zoned. They are what they are. Do we want to extend zoning rules to the other 9 townships? If yes, then we have to assign the zoning assignments. And so I think that's what we've done here. So, in fact, I think you were making a motion
Well,
to,
can the first motion, I'd like to do this if it's all right. I would like to amend the list to include Dietrich's. ag.
yeah, I've got their parcel number here, so we.
That's, what's that?
Yeah, still doing anything?
No, not that I'm aware of.
I didn't think so, but that might, we had discussion on Jeff's place sometime in that too.
It's in
Is that
here.
in the list?
Yeah, it's, because it says if it has a showroom, it's industrial, right?
If it has a showroom, it would be commercial unless they got chemical, then it would be light industrial.
And they have chemical, which makes them light.
Light industrial, right. You talking about harness?
Just trying.
Yeah,
Yep, yeah, it's light industrial.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
you know, so I guess what I would like to do, I move to accept the list from NICOG as the commercials amended with adding Dietrich Ag.
Okay. So the motion is accept the list as it's written here, with the one add of the Dietrich Place parcel number 1102-200-005 as light industrial. All those in favor signify by aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. So this will be the enclosure then to the letter that we would send.
Yeah, we got our bases covered with that, you think? Or do we need to amend the original motion of having everything A1 except the enclosure?
This would supersede it either way, wouldn't it?
I think this did just change.
We're okay.
that.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, that's where we just ended is, we have, everything's A1 except this
Except
list
this
as
list.
amended.
Yep,
I'm good.
okay. So when do we want to have the next public hearing? Yeah, we can probably get, well, if we give notice to the paper this week, it's not going to make it in the paper until next week. And we got to give a couple of weeks, well, 7 to 20 days, 21 days. So if we put it in the paper on the 9th, the public hearing would be sometime the week of the 21st. If we get the letters out by Monday, Tuesday, that's going to give people plenty enough time to get them before a public meeting during the week of the 21st.
Can the county get the letters out in that fast a time?
Yeah, because since we're gonna be able to do a single standard letter, then it's just a matter of printing off the N number of letters and the labels. And Cindy has told me that she can help out with all that. They've got everybody's addresses.
So it shouldn't be a big deal. It just takes time. You're adding to people's load. That's what I'm just worried about is just physically stuffing and mailing. You know, I don't necessarily want to put pressure on the county people that they got to get it done in 2 days. I don't know what's on their agenda is my question.
I guess my personal opinion would be wait for the following week or our regular first of the month, just to give them time to get it all processed for people to get the letters in hand, to read them, maybe look at the ordinance to see what it would mean to them.
So look at the week of the 28th.
Either that week or.
That week or the week after.
Well,
Regular meeting would be after that, right?
yeah, so if we did it the week of the 28th, our next meeting is the 6th.
Right.
So it would work well, I think, if we did it the week of the 28th. That would give plenty of time to get the letters out, get the notice in the paper, give folks a chance to digest it.
Yeah, it's almost good if they get a coffee shop time in there after they read the letter so they can talk to each other. Because half the people aren't gonna see them right away. And they're gonna hear about it from somebody else.
Well, I just want to make sure that, you know, I know we would like to get it somewhat done, but I don't want to rush it too much either. So,
But then the supervisor's still gotta have 2 meetings on it
Yeah.
also.
Supervisors still gotta have their public hearings.
so basically we can do our 2 public hearings this weekend, if you're done on the 28th. And we have our meeting. Well, that's the other question is, do we want to have a meeting on follow up after that so we can give it to the supervisors?
Well, that's what I was
Public
suggesting. If we
meeting.
have the public hearing the week of the 28th, we've got our meeting on the
Scheduled.
6th that's already scheduled.
Yeah,
So I think the week of the 28th, I think would be a great, you know, I don't recall why we picked Tuesday this last time, but
Because Monday didn't work.
It was a national holiday on Monday.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
So if we did the public meeting,
We used to have a-
28th or 29th, then that gives us time to digest what we got from the public meeting, and then we've got our meeting on the 6th.
Yeah, and I couldn't, is there something going on 28, 29? As far as, you know, snowstorm. Well, I'm just saying, is there's, things we aren't even thinking about, there'd be a conflict of, 4-H or, no matter what, you're gonna have conflicts, but basically basketball season's over, track really hasn't started, so all those, a lot of the school events. I don't know if there's a lot on the calendar then, that Monday, Tuesday.
The only thing I question a lot of times with the Wednesday night stuff is there's always church things going on for some people.
Well, that's what I was thinking, Monday or Tuesday.
And you wanna stay away
I like
from
that
Wednesday.
Tuesday thing myself.
What's that?
I liked the Tuesday thing that we did before. I personally thought that was pretty good, but I'm open.
So the 29th. My question is. Well, it's not a holiday.
Yeah, we should be out of them until spring, though, aren't we?
Until Easter's in April sometime, like maybe 14th or something like that. Yeah, that's why I say it's mid-April, since it's the 3rd today, I mean, you can. But I don't have anything on my calendar for either the 28th or the 29th. I don't.
Okay, so why don't we say we'll plan on the 28th or 29th. I'll get a hold of the Kensett City Clerk and see which night, if both nights are open. Do we have a preference for Monday or Tuesday for the community center?
I would pick the Tuesday over the Monday myself,
Okay,
but, because you kind of said that too.
I like the Tuesday thing, but
It just, Monday can be such a long day. So
okay, so I'll try to get the 29th. If it's not available the 29th, then I'll get it for the 28th.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
And again, the intent for that public hearing would just be getting feedback from folks on the zone assignments, right? The motion that we had before and the first public hearing was really to discuss the extension of zoning to these other 9 townships. Now we're at the phase of assigning the zones. So it would be the opportunity for people to come in and say, hey, I don't think I should be zoned as this. I think I should be zoned as that, what have you.
Yep.
Okay. All right, anything else that we need to address between now and then? Well, if there's no further business, without objection, the meeting is adjourned.
all righty then.
That was painless.
Yeah. Well, that's good progress.
There's just. It made it kind of easy when now you can point the finger at Nikon.
Yeah.
Wow. They're the ones that said, yep, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, must be a duck, so we're gonna call it a duck.